Dr. Harrison, a laparoscopic surgeon with specialized training in abdominal surgery, had a reputation for being the best surgeon in town, but his patients whispered about strange occurrences after going under his knife. Sarah, a mother of two young children, was at home tending to dinner while waiting for her husband to return from work. She felt a nagging pain in her side which grew worse as the hours passed. Her husband, Zeke, walked through the front door. An aroma of roast beef and roast potatoes greeted him. He was ravenous and shouted to Sarah from the passage door. "Darling, that smells divine. I am starving," he said while walking to the kitchen. Instead of a beautiful meal, he saw Sarah lying on the kitchen floor. He quickly called the neighbors and asked if they could babysit before he scooped Sarah up and rushed to his car. Belting it down the road and onto the highway, he headed for the emergency room. The emergency doctor on duty examined Sarah and immediately checked her into the hospital for a burst appendix. However, when she woke up, she had no pain on her abdomen. In fact, her abdomen was intact, but an eerie figure in a surgical gown was hovering over her. Dr. Harrison had died years earlier, but his ghost continued to perform surgeries on unsuspecting patients long after his death, leaving them with phantom scars and terrifying memories. Rumors were circulated about a hidden ward in St. Mary's Hospital where patients never seemed to leave. One night, Emily, a curious medical intern, was on her way to the pediatric ward on the 5th floor when the elevator suddenly stopped. She thought nothing of it as she assumed she was on the 5th floor and exited the elevator, then walked into an unlit, mysterious floor. She opened the door to a dark ward and, to her horror, she discovered patients with vacant stares, moving like zombies. As one spotted her, it turned its head and started moving towards Emily, making choking sounds through a gap in her throat. As soon as the other zombies heard this, they too started moving towards Emily, arms outstretched and gurgling. Emily ran as fast as she could down the corridor and jumped into the already waiting lift. Out of breath, she ran to the nurses' station and, what the nurses could make out, was verbal diarrhea, tried to explain what she had stumbled upon. The hospital staff denied the existence of such a ward, but Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something supernatural was at play. She started her own investigation and uncovered a dark secret linking the patients to a forbidden experiment that had gone wrong. Since that day, Emily has never taken the elevator again. She only walks the stairs. John was a vibrant and happy lad. He was always going out with his friends. They would barbecue, go fishing, kayaking, or pub hopping. One December night, the friends had decided they were going to celebrate the Christmas season at a local pub. They were throwing darts, playing pool, and just generally enjoying the evening. As the night came to a close around midnight, John and his friends headed home. He said goodnight to his buddies and walked to his car. Bright headlights came from his driver's side. He was daydreaming and never noticed the traffic light was red for him. The car hit him full on, pinning him beneath his steering wheel. Emergency services, police, and onlookers all swarmed around his car. It was buckled to a ball of metal, but miraculously, he survived the accident even though he was in a coma. A helicopter airlifted him to a nearby hospital, and John was wheeled to theater. He woke up in hospital not remembering much of the previous night. The last thing he remembered was saying goodnight to his friends and heading for his car. He tried to lift his legs off the bed, but they just wouldn't work. Looking down, he saw his left leg had been amputated. The hospital staff insisted it was necessary, claiming the limb was beyond saving. However, as John tried to come to terms with his new reality, he began seeing a shadowy figure hobbling around on the missing leg. The hospital's haunted history revealed an evil spirit known for taking revenge on those who wronged him. John thought of the car that hit him and realized that the man in the other car hadn't survived. and now he had unwittingly become the vessel for the vengeful ghost seeking justice. In Mercy General Hospital, the operating room on the third floor had a dark history. A series of botched surgeries and unexplained deaths led nurses to believe the room was cursed. Lisa, an experienced neurosurgeon, was scheduled to operate on a 57-year-old man. She put on her scrubs, washed her hands, covered her mouth and nose, and headed for the operating room. Anesthetic was administered and the patient drifted off to sleep. Lisa attached the stereotactic frame, then did a CT scan. As soon as she made the incision in the skull, the theater lights started flickering. "Ah, not again," Lisa sighed. There were ghostly whispers that filled the room and instruments moved on their own. The temperature dropped suddenly. Lisa watched as the patient's skull split in two. If I tell you the skull made a loud thud as it hit the floor, I'm not exaggerating. Then she saw tweezers moving on their own and were mooshing his brain. She let out a mighty scream. She knew she could not escape this evil force that seemed determined to claim another victim and add another chapter to the room's gruesome history. Mia, a night shift nurse, loved the quietness of the morgue. Her shift started at 8 p.m. until the next morning at 8. During this time, Lisa would read a book or surf the net. Wednesday night, she arrived at 8 and headed for the kitchen. She made herself a hot, steaming cup of coffee and headed to her small office inside the morgue. It was around 11:30 when she heard footsteps. She saw the flicker of a flashlight in the cold storage room. Assuming it was a colleague, Mia got up and walked to the cold storage room, only to find the room empty. "That's strange," she said to no one in particular. Then the temperature plummeted, and a ghostly figure materialized. She recognized it as the spirit of a deceased janitor who had taken residence in the morgue. The janitor died a year ago. He had worked for the morgue for 40 years. Lisa slowly turned and walked very slowly to her office. She could no longer concentrate on her book. All she could focus on is the morgue that became home to the janitor's restless spirit.